All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for... Huh?
Because the owl's plugged into you.
Oh, yeah. Now I got to get back to realizing that I was on mute. Sorry. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our reorganization meeting of the Rutland Northeast School Board, or Supervisory Union Board. And so at this time, we'd like to go ahead and introduce ourselves. We'll start with the board members, and then we have a few other people in the audience, and we can go around. Oh, I guess I need to also show the pictures, don't I? There you go. Pictures would be good. There you go. There's some pictures. So my name is René Sanchez, and I am the superintendent of the Rutland Northeast Supervisory Union. So I'll go to my right, and then I'll go to my left for introductions, and then we will have those in Zoom land introduce themselves as well.
My name is Lori Bertrand. I am an Otter Valley delegate. I am from Sudbury, and I am the board chair of the Otter Valley Board.
My name is Leo. I am the Chittenden delegate and the Barstow delegate on the RNESU board, and I'm a full-time real estate agent at Four Seasons Sotheby's.
Nice.
Thank you. Barbara.
Hi, I'm Barbara Ebling. I am on the Otter Valley board, and I live in Brandon.
Thank you. Ethan. Maybe Ethan has stepped away. Greg, are you there?
Yes, so my name's Greg Smith. I'm the Minden representative to the BUU and brand new to the Supervisory Union Board.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm back. I just had some technical difficulties there.
Been there as well.
Yeah. So my name's Ethan Bodine, and I am on the Barstow board.
Thank you. And now we have a few other people in the audience. I'd like to have them introduced. Leslie, will you introduce yourself?
I'm Leslie Bienvenu, and I'm on the Otter Valley Union Unified School Board.
Thank you. Debbie.
Debbie Alexander, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment.
Okay. Thank you. So board members, we are now at the point for the review and accept the agenda. So if I could get a motion to accept, accept the agenda after you review it.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. So all those in favor of accepting the agenda as is, please say aye.
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 Okay. Any nays? Okay. Thank you. The agenda has been accepted. So we are now at the communications with parents, citizens, and staff, policy 4.2. Wanting to see if there are any communications, if there's anybody online or anybody here in the library who has anything that they would like to add or speak to the Rutland Northeast Board concerning. Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and move on. The next three bullets of reach out, any board reach out communications, and a letter from our former board secretary, all that are the letter is in the packets, as is the reach out information. So please feel free to review that. And then if you have any questions, please let us know at this time if there's anything you'd like to discuss. All right. Thank you. We are now to the reorganization of the board. So the first step is to elect a chair. So at this time, I'd like to open the floor to nominations for the RNESU board chair.
I'm trying to raise my hand, but I don't have any hands to raise because I'm driving. So I nominate Lori Bertrand.
Okay. Lori, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other nominations at this time? Okay. All right. Thank you. So all those in favor of electing Lori Bertrand as RNESU Board Chair, please say aye.
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 Any nays? There's probably a better way for me to say that, but so with that, Lori, you are now the new the repeating RNESU Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And if you don't mind, I'll take it away from you. Thanks. All right, so we are ready to move on to elect a clerk for the RNESU board meeting. Currently, I think that is Barbara. Is that correct?
It is correct, and I will not be seeking to be reappointed as clerk.
Okay. So are there any nominations for clerk? We do have usually a recording secretary here, so that usually the clerk does not have to take minutes, but sometimes they are needed to sign things for loans and things at the central office, or other items that need to be signed by our clerk.
I would, I of the two people who've been on RNESU before, Kevin and Ethan, Kevin is not here, or is he?
He is not, but you know what? He should have been. So if you want to nominate him, I have no problem with that.
I was going to do that. That was my strategy.
Okay,
I've been
there.
told,
All right.
be there or
That's right.
get
Be there.
snooze around.
Exactly.
So I nominate Kevin Thornton as clerk.
All right. Are there any other nominations?
Is there a second? I don't even know if anybody seconded
We
it.
didn't really second it because there's only 6 of us, so it's just mainly nominations. So is there any other nominations for board clerk? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of Kevin Thornton being our board clerk, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. That's what you get for forgetting the meeting was tonight. All right, moving on. We need...
Oh, man. They'll make an excellent.
I know, right? Let's appoint a rep to the Teacher Negotiations Committee. I will tell you that Kevin, I'd already spoken to Kevin before the meeting about being our rep. It's already actually on our consent agenda to make him a board member for RNESU for the Teacher Negotiations. So I guess what I'm saying is that I would like to nominate Kevin Thornton as our board rep for Teacher Negotiations. Is there any other nominations? Hearing none, all of those in favor of Kevin Thornton becoming our rep to the teacher negotiations for RNESU, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, and since he just barely walked in the door, let's give him a rousing hand here, because not only are you the rep to the teacher negotiations, but you are also now our board clerk. You're welcome.
Fantastic.
Here, 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 here.
I've got to warn you, I can't read my own handwriting.
That's all right, not my problem. Okay, moving on. All right. Consent agenda. This is probably the only time during the year where I will ask you if there's anything that you want to remove from the consent agenda and actually talk about before we just go ahead and vote.
Would it be appropriate to ask one question
Sure.
about an item on it, or is that at a later time?
So if you have a question about the consent agenda as a whole or about one thing on the consent agenda?
Just one thing on the consent agenda, and it's just the wording that I just want to clarify an understanding of.
Okay, so which letter is that?
That's the very last one, S.
S? Okay, so we are going to remove S. We'll talk about that separately. Anyone else? Okay, so let's do this first. Let's do S first by itself. So can I get someone to make a motion to approve letter S of the consent agenda, which is local, state, federal, and privately funded programs?
So moved.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Leo got ya. Sorry. All right. Discussion. So, Greg, you had a question. What was your question?
Yeah, so does the language in there suggest that these would move forward or gain their support if they were budgeted? in the budget that was passed, or is that not contemplated in the language?
Guess I have to see what it says.
Yeah, it's just giving us authority to, if they're there,
Oh, okay.
to implement them.
Right. So essentially, these are not part of the budget necessarily. They are grants. And so it's just essentially giving the administration the authority to administer those programs if they are available to us as federal and state funding.
So when granted, then they can be executed, and it doesn't have anything to do with budgeting.
That's correct.
Okay. That answers my question.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion regarding this particular item? Okay. All those in favor of letter S, local, state, federal, and privately funded programs, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, passes, thank you. All right, now let's do the rest of the consent agenda. Can I get someone to make a motion?
Move the consent agenda.
Oh,
Sounds like Kevin
Second.
and then Barbara, okay? All those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Perfect. Thank you for that. All right, we are going to move on into our global ends monitoring, and I believe there is a presentation of our snapshot district data reporting.
So if you are in the room, you have an updated slideshow, so that way you don't have to squint at the screen. If not, I will broadcast this for everybody. Given that most of this presentation has already been presented to both Otter Valley and to Barstow, I am going to kind of cut to the chase on the things that we need to talk about as RNESU. So there's going to be a lot of kind of quickly flashing slides. So. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to stop here on this particular chart is that I want to draw attention to what the state of Vermont has recommended to RNESU as a whole, as a supervisory union, to make sure that we are monitoring on our end. So if we have the category known as Equity 1 listed in our column, I guess let me explain the chart. So on the left-hand side are student groups that are being measured as part of our VT-CAP data. Across the columns, you'll see the subdivisions of our supervisory unions. So RNESU, Otter Valley, the high school that is, Neshabie, OCA, Lothrop, and Barstow. So if there is an Equity 1 in the cell, then that means that there is an academic gap or a performance gap based on the state test, the VT-CAP, for students in that category. So in the case of RNESU has 3 Equity 1s listed. So the performance of our students who are free and reduced lunch is the gap between the free and reduced lunch students and non-free and reduced lunch students is significant. The gap between our special education students and non-special education students is significant, and the gap between our historically marginalized students and our historically privileged students is significant. So for our individual schools, you'll see that Neshabie has 1 in historically marginalized, Lothrop has 2 1 in free and reduced lunch, and I'll talk about Equity 2 shortly, but there are also Equity 1 in historically marginalized, and Barstow is Equity 1 in free and reduced lunch. So over the course of this year, over the course of the next month or two, right, Debbie, we will be working with our principals, and our principals will be working with their faculties to design what our continuous improvement plan for next year will look like. We know that we have to focus on academics. There's a lot of other things that we would like to include within the continuous improvement plan, but the things that will be measured the most closely will be our academic performance and the things that contribute to academic performance, like attendance, like behavior, other things that contribute to what will support the academics growing, whether it's raising the performance level to proficiency or growing students who are already at proficiency to higher levels of enrichment. So this particular slide just gives you a quick update on who are the student groups that are listed in the historically marginalized group. So it's students who are African American, Native American, Asian, English learner, free and reduced lunch, Hispanic, those students on IEPs, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander. So just coming again, that Equity 1 status refers to a gap between one student group and the student group that is the kind of its polar, not its polar opposite, but it's kind of mirror status. Equity 2, this is what I wanted to touch a little bit about Lothrop. So Lothrop has moved from Equity 1 to Equity 2. And so in its case, it is the historically marginalized students. We have a meeting that we have rescheduled for April 1 or 2, something like that, with the AOE, because not only did the performance gap continue and the equity gap continue, we have to figure out if the gap essentially closed because of the declining performance of the all students group, or if the students who are in that historically marginalized group are now in the lowest 5% of all Equity 1 schools in the state. So just, it is part of the Vermont accountability system, so that's still kind of, the Vermont's still learning how to implement it, is what I would say about that. But it is of concern, because if they stick to the letter of the law, that means that we have to be paying particular attention to it. And as a result, we have to make sure that we propose solutions within our continuous improvement plan and then show improvement over the next year. So we talked about the scores before. So the one thing I wanted to add to the conversation is the RNESU. Definitely we want to talk about graduation and making sure that we get students there, seeing as how we have slid a little bit further from the last 2 years, where our 4-year graduation rate was 75%, now it's 72%. A little bit concerning is our 6-year graduation rate went from 83% to 75%. So we have to monitor how our students are performing right now. So we've found our students who were our students in 2021, and we're going to see their how they're doing. Are they progressing through our system? Did they move away? Did they drop out? So we can have a really good heads up as to what our percentage will be for this coming year. So I also want to make sure that we talk a little bit about our post-graduation information. So Vermont, as part of its academic proficiency information, includes performance measures like the ACT, the SAT, AP, but I'm also really glad that they include things like industry-recognized credentials and work keys. So if we get that information from Stafford and from Hannaford, and we're able to put it into our student information system, the state picks it up and gives the students and the school credit for that performance. So it's important for us to make sure that we continue to send our students there so that they are career and life ready. The next set of data is our post-graduation. So we began contracting with an organization called the National Student Clearinghouse earlier this year. It's one of the best deals that I know of for just under $400. We're able to get our last 8 years of student information and how they're doing post-high school. So these are some quick numbers. I'll get to the charts in a second of the most recent graduating classes and how they in the year that they graduated from high school, the year shortly after, what did they do? Did they enroll, and what type of institution they enrolled in, and then were they in-state or out-of-state? So going back to 2018. So this data, so for those of you in the room, those numbers are really small, but if you use this chart, this will give you the legal sheet that goes with it. This will give you the numbers by the colors. And so what's really important about, or why I like these particular charts and these particular numbers in general, it gives you an idea of how our students progressed in the last 6 years. So for our students who graduated in 2018, you can see that in their first year out of high school, that the green referred to them being new to college, purple that they weren't found by the National Student Clearinghouse. And just kind of as an aside, the National Student Clearinghouse is formerly the National Student Loan Clearinghouse. So they have the ability to reach out to 99% of all post-secondary institutions in the country. So if you have ever been enrolled, they know, except for the probably less than 1% of institutions that they have access to. So then the next year, you'll see that some students, the orange is really important too, because that's students who have persisted, students who are new to college, that's year 2. Year 3 for class of 2018, you can see some students, largely because maybe they went to a 2-year college or they had AP credit, graduated after the first couple of years. And then as the maroon continues to grow, that gives you a good idea of the percentage of our students based on that number next to the year up top, what percentage of those students graduated from college. And so it is very, right now, whether it's 2018, 2019, or 2020, the numbers are pretty consistent. They're somewhere between 20 and 40% of our students are graduating from college within 6 years, which is really good. And so you can see that in the bottom row in the class of 2021, we don't have anybody except maybe a very small handful of 2-year college grads have graduated. And then 2022, of the 71, there's actually at least 1, maybe 2 grads in year 2. So that means they probably had some college credits going into their first year. And then 2023 and 2024 do not have any graduates yet. But this is now that we have this data and we have the data by individual students, we will be able to go back and attach or be able to run data on how they did while they were in high school, classes that they took, in order to prepare them to be able to graduate. We also will be able to present this data moving forward, utilizing things like, not historically marginalized, maybe that'll come later, but by gender, by special education, and by free and reduced lunch and ethnicity as well. Similar to that. Okay. And then as I just want to go ahead and hit on this one really quick. In looking at our data, at Debbie and I and the principals, we've recognized that that these are really our areas of emphasis for our continuous improvement plan moving forward. Attendance, academic performance and growth, behavior and social emotional learning, and then those things will help us with graduation and college, career, and life readiness. And so Deb, if you want to just maybe mention one or two things since we've already.
Yeah, because I think mostly everyone has heard all of this. I think that a new piece that I hadn't put up there under the academic performance and growth, I just met today with a group that was contracted from the state. They, you have an opportunity to work with them, and we chose to. And so they will bring some math coaching to our schools over the next 3 years. And the focus is on grades 3 through 5. And we spoke today about that our work will be thinking about, you have the new, the transition to Bridges 3. How do we take the transition to Bridges 3 program and also slide in some refreshers or common instructional practices for everyone for supporting our students who often are on IEPs or receiving intervention services, because that's often a place where we are needing some of that support, and it ties in really well with supporting our schools that are in need of equity support. So that's sort of an add-on there. So everything else I spoke with at one of the other meetings.
And like we said before, we're encouraging our principals to meet with their staffs, look at the data, and develop their initial goal for this coming year, and then a more robust goal, a goal that is really striving the second year, because that will be we will have 2 full years of implementation going into the VT-CAP test in 26-27. And that's it. These are all the resources. Any follow-up questions from the previous report or from this one individually?
I have some definitional questions.
Sure.
I don't understand, this is on the equity supports chart page. I don't understand what none means. Does that mean there are sufficient numbers to count and none of the kids qualified for equity services?
Yes. So if there is a none, that means that we had at least 25 students in that group, and there was not a performance gap.
Okay.
If it's less, so if it says NA low student count, that means that there was less than 25, and we don't know if there's a gap.
Okay.
Unless we run the numbers.
So do we really have more than 25 of American Indian or Native descent in our school district?
That's what the state is. That's where we got those numbers from, the none and low student count.
Okay.
So,
my
it should be. It's also linked down there too for the Feb 25 snapshot released. Okay. Well, on the left-hand side, one can go in there and then scroll to the. People can see where I got the information from.
Okay. My next question is about IEP students. By definition, aren't they going to be behind the rest of the class? So are they again by definition going to be in an equity 1 situation? Universally all the time, or most of them.
So when IEPs are written, the goal is for the IEP goals to be written so that students can perform grade level material with sufficient accommodations and modifications. So when they take this test, provided they're using their accommodations and modifications,
okay,
they should still be able to perform that grade level, or they should be able to perform proficient. That is the end goal of writing an IEP goal.
Okay, thanks.
There are some students, though, that have additional concerns or disabilities where they have to take an alternative assessment, where it's not the same test that the general education students take, but it's a test that is modified in order for them to be able to take it, usually with the assistance of a paraprofessional or a teacher.
Okay, and then the next page, historically marginalized and equity group components.
Yeah.
On the left-hand chart, we've got foster, homeless, and migrant. I'm taking migrant to mean undocumented as opposed to migratory.
Migratory, as in a person whose family, they could be as somebody who works in Michigan for the part of the year and then works in South Texas for another part of the year.
Okay. Well, those three groups, foster, homeless, and migrant, don't appear in the right chart, and I was wondering why that is.
Both of these are state definitions. So they are the state-defined characteristics.
So why wouldn't they be in the historically marginalized student group on the right-hand chart?
They should be. I would argue that they should.
Yeah.
But the state does not list them as a historically marginalized group of students.
Does the state track them at all?
Yes.
Okay. They don't appear in the right chart in any manner, though, as a separate group?
No.
Okay. Okay. Those are my questions.
But we do track them, and we do have to say how we are serving them in our continuous improvement plan, irrespective of Equity 1.
Okay. In our district, I would think that those three groups, and I know we've got foster and homeless, I don't know about migrants, should be in the historically marginalized side and would affect our numbers in other ways too, if that were counted properly.
They potentially are already in there listed as a different category within the historically marginalized.
Okay.
So somebody potentially who is experiencing homelessness may also be also categorized as receiving free and reduced lunch supports. So they would fall under one of those.
Yeah, because once you have a
fall under
1
that.
in that column, you're
Right.
you're part of the historically marginalized group.
Okay. I'm just going to say, I'm not sure that accounts for everybody, and everybody should be accounted for. For instance, I can imagine foster children who don't fall into that category.
And many times, not always, but many times, children who are in the foster system are, it's called a direct certification, so they automatically receive that free and reduced lunch, even if their foster family wouldn't qualify, the student will often qualify.
Thanks.
But thank you for bringing that up, because that's really important.
And if I might add the piece, Kevin, about about thinking about students on IEPs, we have one data point that we look at, and that is the sort of expected growth for students. And it's sort of two categories: high proficiency or low proficiency, and then high growth or low growth. So what we're always looking for is that high growth. So even if a student is still in low proficiency, we want them out of that category, but seeing high growth shows us that they are, moving forward. And so what has likely happened is that our learners who are proficient are growing at a rate that's much faster than our students on IEPs. And then that's what just makes that equity gap much larger. But that one measure helps us. We know if they score a 50, then that means that they grew about a year's worth during the year at that rate. Anything below that tells us, as you can imagine, somebody who's behind, we want that above 50. We want to give them enough supports to gain more than a year. If they are below 50, then we're really not supporting that student well because, they're falling further behind because they didn't even gain the year once, even with supports. So.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Let's move on. Monitoring report 2.3, financial conditions and activities. That should be in everybody's packet. Can I get someone to make a motion to accept the monitoring report?
So moved.
Thanks, Barbara. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Greg. Discussion regarding the monitoring report 2.3.
I guess the only thing I would like to add to this, because we've discussed it before, is I really am thankful for both Melinda and Brenda for helping me populate the evidence portion of this particular EL, because it's a very long EL with a lot of components to it. But what I love about it is that the monitoring that takes place, all you have to do is look back through a lot of our board agendas, and we're bringing this information to the boards and to the community virtually every month.
Great. Any other discussion or comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the monitoring report 2.3 and accepting it, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Perfect. Thank you. Moving on, governance process. We have two of our own board monitoring reports. Also should be in your packet. The first one is the monitoring report 4.5, board members code of conduct. Is it possible to pull that up on?
Yeah, I was just going there.
Thank you.
Let me get to the web. Almost there.
Okay. There it is.
I might want to change superintendent, any place that says superintendent and then a she, should probably say a he.
Or maybe we should just say she, he kind of thing, or superintendent will. Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. Yep. We'll make sure that we get rid of gender. So no gender words. Okay. Anything else regarding code of conduct? Okay, I'm not hearing anything. Anything else you want to change? If not, we'll move on to the next one, which is 4.6 board committee principles. And this board does not really have any committees. The only committee that we have someone do is negotiations. I think we can take the task force off there because we haven't had a task force in a couple of years. Anything else? Looks like about it. All right. Well, let's move on to our RNESU policy for action. Policy DID, capitalization of assets. This is this was revised in February of 2025. And this is our second reading to adopt. So this should have already gone out to both boards. You should have already seen it once already. Can I get someone to make a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
So moved. Or I second.
Was that Leo who said that first?
Kevin.
Kevin, sorry. All right, Kevin and Barbara, thank you. Is there any discussion?
Question, is there a short answer as to why we're raising it from 5 to 10? Did something trigger that?
We haven't renewed it since 2017, so it's been almost 8 years.
Inflation.
Yeah, more than likely. Capitalization of assets, being a CPA, I know that buying something for $5,000 is pretty an insignificant number now, whereas $10,000 is more like something that you would have to capitalize and show that you're using it more than 1 year. So that it's probably just an arbitrary number, but
Okay.
In that amount of time, I think that they also raised the amount of money where you had to go get more bids, and like that's
Right.
increased as well.
yeah.
It's not part of the policy, but that was a shift.
Okay. That was really the only thing that changed in
That's
that,
the only,
correct?
that's the only thing that changed.
Okay. So all those in favor of second reading of the DID capitalization of assets, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay. Legislative proposal discussion. So this is just something that we are keeping on our agenda every month, so that we don't lose sight of what the legislature is doing with education. Do you want to talk briefly about where they're at? You sent something out today that I thought was quite interesting.
So there is a new bill that has been filed by, is it Senator Baumgart's?
Yeah, yeah. Here, I'll look it
From
up while you do
Bennington.
Mm-hmm.
That divides the state into many more supervisory unions / school districts. So tomorrow night, Lori and I will be meeting with the other superintendents and board chairs from the Southwest Vermont Superintendents Association at GRCSU in order to really begin conversations that we can present a unified front to make sure that our concerns for our students, for our towns, for our buildings are going to be addressed, to make sure that any change to Vermont education is not solely about taxes, that if we're trying to create what Vermont education is, we can't just say that it's about the money. It's also about making sure that the students have and that the teachers have what they need in order to be successful. Mm-hmm. So, because if we, and Anyway, that's I could definitely go on a diatribe about that. But that is something that I think that the Southwest Vermont superintendents are all in agreement that this is the time while the iron is hot, that we are able to recreate all the things that need to be changed. And so attached to the superintendent announcements is much of the latest material that we had earlier this week regarding the governor's plans, as well as information from the Vermont Superintendents Association, the School Boards Association, and other entities. We can reshare out this other legislation when we refresh the documents later this week, when we post the recording of this video.
There it is. Yeah, this one, I looked at it a little bit. It shows 19 districts.
And part of those 19 districts, RNESU specifically is broken apart. And Barstow goes to a school choice, becomes part of a school choice district. And Otter Valley goes and joins with current supervisory unions that are north of us, west of us, and south of us.
Yeah, essentially ACSD, Rutland, GRSU,
and Slate Valley.
Slate Valley. Yep. Yeah. Okay, so. All right. Anybody else have any questions about what's going on in the legislature or anything you've heard? Just curious. I've been trying to follow through Digger, and anything that comes out there, they're usually pretty good about reporting on that stuff.
What's the secretary's status? I know she was...
She's pushing the governor's plan pretty hard.
No.
Confirmed.
Wasn't
She's
she
confirmed.
appointed for... Oh, she was confirmed?
Yeah, she
She's
was confirmed, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's news to me.
I think the other thing that we need to watch too is, as part of the governor's proposal, is to eliminate universal school lunch. But now with the repeal of the local foods grants for across the country, where schools had the opportunity to buy from local farmers, that is going to affect Vermont quite a bit. I know that in the legislature they're trying to find some stopgap funding, at least to honor this coming year's contracts. But either way, both they don't bode well for our students who need those meals.
Right. Okay.
Actually, sorry, real quick, I just have one clarification. Under the other plan that you said was presented by the Senator down south or whatever, is that, you said Barstow goes to choice, does that mean Barstow is eliminated and they choose where to send students pay through elementary?
So Barstow would, I don't know what it would happen to the school per se, but Mendon, Chittenden would be grouped with other schools. We can send that out to our board members shortly, and then that way you can get a look at it before we post it to our to the site tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Superintendent informational report.
Well, that's all. I really wanted to make sure that people were aware of what is transpiring in Montpelier with regards to the governor's plan, as well as the other opportunities that are going on. So there are the links that you can get from the superintendent announcements, but it's also good to just make sure that you're tuned into the newspaper links, as well as just finding out what your local representative and senator are putting out as communications to their community.
Are the superintendents expecting some legislation this session?
Yes, that's why there's lots of testimony and being given right now. We don't know which way it's going to go. Some of the things that we're hearing is that it may end up going deep into June as opposed to ending in May like it typically does.
Peter Conlon and Jill Krakowski, is that who she is? She's part of the House. She's one of the House Means and Ways Committee members. They had an hour-long lunch, like webinar kind of deal, talking about things, and they were pretty certain that something would happen this session. What, they didn't know, but okay. Anything else to talk about? Oh, Kevin's contemplating
I
something.
am contemplating something, but maybe it's better said later on. Yes. Okay, so maybe this is just too speculative. I don't understand why this consensus would have built in Montpelier so quickly. Is this the result of them getting burnt a couple of years ago, or last year was it, with the, yeah, it was last year, with the,
Voting?
the local budgets that the situation they created with that.
I think that you could definitely look at that. I mean, look at how many people lost their seat. Some of that was, underhanded, but people lost their seats based on voting. But lots of budgets went down last year because people were upset with Montpelier. So they know something has to change, and I think that's why they're trying to do something, because they know property taxes cannot continue to climb. It's unsustainable.
One of the things that I think we need to make sure that whatever comes to fruition is that if they are saying that consolidation needs to happen and schools, for whatever reason, need to close, that it shouldn't be incumbent upon the people who are right, they're currently fighting to maintain our schools or maintain schools being open, and that's their prerogative. But I want to make sure that there's some accountability at the legislature level too, that they have some skin in the game to make sure, by telling us this really needs to happen and here are the guidelines to help you make those decisions. Because otherwise it'll just be that won't allow much of this transformational work to get off the ground if we're spending the next 5 years trying to decide which schools need to close because they left it to us to do.
So one of my concerns is that we had similar discussions around Act 46, and Act 46 was presented as consolidation and as streamlining and as efficiency. And to my mind, the net effect was the consolidation of power centrally and very little streamlining and efficiency and savings. And this smells the same to me, that we're going to have single school boards, we'll have these big, large districts, all of us will lose our local jobs as school board members. But I don't see a plan for new high schools. I don't see a plan for I mistrust any claims of streamlining and executive consolidation. Makes me wonder whether the net effect is just going to be Montpelier controlling the school systems and very little changing on the ground, except with the closure of small schools mandated by the state. I need to be convinced, they don't need to convince me, obviously, but as a voter, I need to be convinced that this is actually going to be something good coming out of this rather than just an increased loss of local control as we've had in the past.
Well, the budget, taxes aren't going to go down by reducing administration alone. It's around 6% of the $2.4 billion budget. So if you were to eliminate even half of that, it's still not going to go down by much. So that means that there are going to have to be other components also balanced. And those are, I think, that's where why Act 46 didn't work as efficiently because people argued that schools needed to have this and this and this and this, and people voted for those things because they were student-facing. And as a result, that's where the money ended up being spent, and that's why there wasn't the budgetary savings realized like it could have been. But that's, on my part, that's speculation, but there hasn't been really much. There's been, to my knowledge, one study on it, on what Act 46, the impact of Act 46 on savings. So hasn't really been studied very much.
We did save our first 3 years as consolidated board, as we right-sized the budget. I think that was the word we used, right-sized the budget in our, but those savings have been long gone. Now we're facing declining enrollment, and so I think one of the things we need to be looking at is partnering with other schools somehow, some way, to make ourselves, I mean, one of the things we're talking about is small class sizes. You know, that we need to have bigger class sizes. What is that ultimate number? What's the right number? Not 25, it's not 30. That's not conducive to learning, but anyway, just have to keep watching and waiting.
And asking questions.
That's
Please
right.
ask questions.
Yep, ask all the questions you want. Okay, our next board meeting is set for Wednesday, April 16th, here at 5 p.m. I don't think we need executive session, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Y'all
So
wanna
moved.
Okay, well, I thought everybody wanted to stay. All right, is there a second?
Sure.
Okay, all right, there we go. All right, thank you, everyone. We will see you in April.